The church overflowed with more than 300 guests, every pew packed with friends, family, and colleagues who had come to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest day of my son's life. The air was sweet with the scent of white roses, and the delicate notes of a string quartet floated toward the high vaulted ceiling. All eyes were fixed on the altar when I pushed open the side doors and stepped inside. My name is Clara Whitmore, and at 68, I am not a woman who enjoys making a spectacle of herself. Yet that afternoon, there I was, pearls around my neck, chin held high, walking into my son's wedding uninvited. At the front of the aisle stood Amelia Hart, radiant in her designer gown, holding a bouquet that trembled in her hands the moment she saw me. Her painted smile faltered as she hissed, "What are you doing here, Clara? You weren't invited. You're not supposed to be here." I touched the pearls at my throat, steadying my breath. "My dear," I said softly, "did you really think I wouldn't show up?" Whispers rippled through the crowd. My son Ethan turned sharply, confusion flashing across his face, and then right on cue, the doors behind me opened again. The guest I had promised to bring, the one Amelia feared most, stepped inside, her face drained of color. The moment had come. Before we go back to the beginning, let me say this. Sometimes protecting someone you love means stepping directly into the storm. This was mine. Until 6 months ago, my biggest worry had been finding a dress suitable for my only son's wedding. Life, of course, had other plans. Ethan Whitmore was 35, a quiet, thoughtful man who preferred fixing problems to making small talk. When his father, my late husband Robert, passed away 3 years ago, Ethan withdrew even further into himself. Then, one spring evening, he introduced me to Amelia. She was breathtaking, all golden hair, perfect posture, and a voice that seemed practiced to sound delicate. "It's such a pleasure to finally meet you, Mrs. Whitmore," she said sweetly. "Ethan talks about you constantly." Over dinner, Amelia told us about her work as a pediatric nurse, her weekends spent volunteering at an animal shelter, and her dream of building a family full of laughter and love. I watched my son light up beside her. It had been so long since I'd seen him smile like that. When Amelia spoke of her estranged family who had supposedly disowned her for choosing love over wealth, my heart broke for her. I vowed silently that night to be the mother she never had. Looking back now, that was when the trap began to close. Their relationship moved with dizzying speed. Within weeks, there was a ring on her finger and talk of a grand wedding. "When you know, you just know," Ethan said, his voice full of conviction. Amelia painted the picture of a fairy tale, an elegant venue with imported flowers, a Vera Wang gown, live music, and hundreds of guests. She looked at me with teary gratitude and whispered, "You're like the mother I always dreamed of." I wanted so badly to believe her. To see my son happy again, I ignored the little voice that warned me something was wrong. So I opened not only my heart, but also my bank account. I paid deposits, signed checks, and even took out a loan against my home, all to bring Amelia's dream wedding to life. When I hesitated, she'd hug me tight and promise, "You'll have the grandchildren you've always wanted." But cracks began to show. Small at first. One evening, I caught her slipping folded bills from my wallet into her purse. When I asked about it, she laughed lightly. "Oh, I just prefer cash. Old habits." Then there were her stories, inconsistent and shifting. She told Ethan she'd grown up on a farm in Kansas, then told a friend she was raised by grandparents in New York. When I asked about photos of her family, she claimed they'd all been lost in a house fire. Convenient, I thought. Too convenient. When I gently brought my concerns to Ethan, he grew tense. "Mom, please," he said. "Amelia's been through enough. Can't you just accept that?" The words stung. My son, once my confidant, now saw me as the obstacle. Still, the unease grew. Amelia had no friends from her past, no social media, and a habit of stepping outside for every phone call. Her expression always shifted when she returned, as if she had to reset her mask. Then, one Thursday afternoon, everything changed. I had gone to Ethan's apartment to drop off custom wedding favors. He'd given me a spare key, and I thought I'd surprise him by setting them out before he came home. But as I entered, I heard Amelia's voice from the bedroom, sharp, impatient, and nothing like the sweet tone I knew. "Marcus, I told you not to call this number," she snapped. "Yes, the wedding's on schedule. I'll have access to the accounts once we're married. How much more do you want? We agreed on 30%. The old lady's already given us over 40,000, the old lady, me." My knees nearly buckled. "This fool's worth at least 200 grand, she said coldly. "No, he suspects nothing." I slipped out as quietly as I could, my heart hammering. Once in my car, I broke. Tears blurred my vision as I pounded the steering wheel in rage at her, at myself, at every red flag I'd ignored. But grief soon hardened into resolve. I had survived my husband's illness, years of raising a child alone, and the loneliness that followed. I would survive this too. That night, I called a private investigator named Lydia Torres, a former detective with eyes that missed nothing. After hearing my story, Lydia leaned back and said, "What you're describing is classic romance fraud. They study you, learn exactly who you need them to be." I slid a check across her desk. "Find out who she really is." A week later, Lydia called. "Clara, you'd better sit down," she said. Amelia Hart didn't exist. The woman living in my son's apartment was actually Sabrina Cole, 29, originally from Texas. She'd been arrested multiple times for fraud, only one conviction, but dozens of victims. Her accomplice, Marcus Reed, had once been her partner and lover until she stole $15,000 from him and disappeared. The truth hit like ice water. Amelia Sabrina wasn't just deceitful, she was a professional predator. Every word, every tear, every hug had been rehearsed. That night, I made a decision. Quiet confrontation wouldn't work. Ethan would never believe me unless he saw undeniable proof, and he would see it in front of everyone. I called Lydia again. "Find Marcus Reed," I said. "Tell him I want to talk." Within a day, she sent me his number. Marcus was bitter but willing. When I told him Sabrina was about to marry my son, there was silence. Then he said, "Tell me when and where." Together we made a plan. The morning of the wedding arrived gray and heavy with rain, fitting weather for the storm ahead. I dressed in black, fastened my pearls, and drove to the church early. By 1 o'clock, Marcus texted, "I'm here, waiting for your signal." Inside, everything gleamed, candles flickering, roses lining the aisles, guests murmuring in anticipation. I could hear whispers among the staff about missing payments and unpaid balances. They didn't know I had rerouted the bills to cut off Amelia's access days earlier. At 2 sharp, the string quartet began. Ethan took his place at the altar, radiant with nervous hope. Then the doors opened. Amelia, or Sabrina, stepped inside, glowing under the chandelier light. My grandmother's pearls sparkled at her throat. I typed a single word to Marcus, "Now." The side doors burst open. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Marcus strode down the aisle, rain still clinging to his coat. "Sabrina Cole," he shouted, his voice echoing. "Did you really think you could run forever?" The bouquet slipped from her hands. Ethan stepped forward defensively. "You've got the wrong person," he said. "This is Amelia Hart." Marcus gave a bitter laugh. "Amelia's just one of her masks. Her real name is Sabrina Cole, professional con artist. I should know. I was her partner until she stole $15,000 from me." "She's lying," Sabrina's voice cracked. "He's obsessed. I don't know this man." Marcus lifted a folder holding up photos. "Here she is in Chicago, pretending to have cancer to raise donations. Here in Mexico, leaving our hotel room with my wallet and ring. You want proof?" He held up his phone. "Here's a recording from 3 weeks ago." Then came her voice, sharp, cruel, unmistakable. "The old lady's already given us 40 grand. The son's a mama's fool. I'll clean them out after the wedding." The church fell silent. Ethan's face went white. He turned slowly toward her. "You called my mother a fool?" he said hoarsely. Sabrina's tears streaked her makeup. "Ethan, I love you. People make mistakes." Before she could finish, the church doors opened once more. 2 federal agents walked in, badges raised. "Sabrina Cole, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy." The crowd gasped. Phones lifted, recording everything as she screamed, "This is a mistake!" But the cuffs clicked shut, and she was led down the aisle past 300 stunned guests, past the man she had betrayed. Ethan stood motionless. After she was gone, silence filled the church. The minister looked lost. Guests shifted awkwardly, unsure what to do. Ethan took a deep breath and faced them. "Well," he said quietly, "this isn't how I expected today to go." A nervous laugh rippled through the pews. "The wedding's obviously canceled, but the reception's paid for. There's an open bar. You're all welcome to stay." Laughter broke the tension. Slowly, people began talking, comforting, processing. I walked down the aisle toward my son. When he saw me, tears welled in his eyes. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking, "I'm so sorry. I should have listened." I cupped his face gently. "You weren't foolish," I said. "You were in love, and believing in love is never something to be ashamed of." He pulled me into an embrace, and for the first time in months, I felt my son again, the boy I'd raised. The man who'd just learned that sometimes love's biggest lessons come wrapped in heartbreak. As we stood there, surrounded by the murmurs of 300 witnesses, I realized that storms don't just destroy. They also reveal what's strong enough to stand after the clouds finally break.